Coming to Canada, the new Prime Minister Mark Carney has directed the Defence Ministry to review a $13.2 billion F-35 fighter jet deal signed with the US. Carney's move.
Donald Trump is freaking out as Canada just blew up a massive $13.2 billion defense deal and chose Europe over the US.
They will have to stop before we sit down and have a conversation about our broader partnership with the United States.
With Europe offering cheaper jets and none of Trump's trademark chaos, Canada's ready to cut ties.
We've called out those comments. They're disrespectful. They're not helpful.
Looks like America's favorite neighbor finally had enough of the drama.
To Mark Carney breaking with tradition and traveling to Europe, not the United States, on his first official foreign trip.
Donald Trump just took one of the biggest ego slaps in recent political history. Canada, yes, the polite maple syrup-loving neighbor, just hit Trump where it hurts the most, right in the billions. Canada is now officially reviewing its whopping $13.2 billion F-35 fighter jet deal with the US.
Both clean and conventional energy, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We are going to get stronger, while those who take trade actions get weaker.
That's not some minor little weapons contract. It's a multi-billion-dollar military agreement. The ink's barely dry on this thing, and they're already saying, maybe we don't need America's overpriced toys after all.
But we're Canada. We don't need other people to come to our aid.
And you know who's freaking out? Trump. The man's already got trade wars on every corner, and now Canada, America's sweet, harmless next-door buddy, is rethinking whether it even wants to play ball with him anymore. Prime Minister Mark Carney stepped up and didn't hold back. He straight up announced that Canada is reviewing the F-35 deal and considering better alternatives. Better alternatives to the Lockheed Martin F-35 jets that America's been so proud of selling.
According to a statement by the Canadian Defence Ministry, Prime Minister Carney has instructed the ministry to determine whether the F-35 deal is the best investment for Canada and if there are better alternatives that meet Canada's needs.
And let's be real. When someone says they're looking at better alternatives, they're politely telling you that your offer sucks and they're about to swipe left.
The emphasis on Canada and Europe standing together side by side. And Carney did not hold back in his criticism of the US president.
And here's where the irony slaps Trump in the face. This deal was signed under Justin Trudeau's government back in January 2023. We're talking about 88 fighter jets, a shiny price tag of $13.2 billion, all locked in. But no, Trump couldn't just let the deal ride smooth. He had to open his big mouth, pick unnecessary fights. And now Canada's thinking twice about whether being in bed with the US defense industry is worth the headache.
However, the statement clarified that the deal has not been revoked yet. Canada has already paid for the first shipment of 16 F-35s, which are due in early 2026.
And because Trump just can't help himself, he threw in that little jab, suggesting Canada should become the 51st US state. Really, Don? That's your strategy? Humiliate the country you're trying to keep as a defense partner? Well, surprise, surprise, it backfired. Canada's now serving Trump a big old plate of regret, questioning if sticking to American defense contracts is even worth it anymore.
I don't think one needs to respond to every comment about another country. Look, we can stand up for ourselves. It's Canada strong. We can stand up for ourselves.
Now, how did we even get here? Let's roll back. Canada's been a good sport in the whole US-led Joint Strike Fighter, F-35 project since the 2010s. They were one of the team players, contributing to the design and technology of the F-35 like a loyal ally. And back then, the plan seemed simple. Replace the old, aging CF-18 Hornets with shiny new US F-35s to keep NATO happy and keep things compatible. Sounds straightforward, right? But then Trump decided to play tough guy. Instead of appreciating Canada's loyalty, he slapped harsh tariffs on Canadian goods, triggering an all-out trade mess.
This trade uncertainty, the actual tariffs, but then also the uncertainty around what other trade actions could be taken by the world's largest economy, are having an impact. They're having an impact on the United States itself. That impact on the United States will continue to grow.
You'd think maybe Trump would have kept his temper in check, considering Canada is literally America's neighbor, ally, and defense partner. But no, he doubled down, running his mouth, throwing around comments about annexing Canada and making it the 51st state. Because nothing screams diplomacy like suggesting you take over another country, right?
Since President Trump decided to, say that he wanted to annex Canada, Mark Carney saying quite forcefully that for bilateral talks to continue, that kind of talk has to stop. They have not even had a phone call.
And believe me, Canadians noticed. Their leadership, their defense experts, even public opinion all collectively raised an eyebrow and thought, wait a minute, is the US really the partner we want to trust anymore? Trump basically turned Canada's reliable partnership into a toxic situationship. And Canada's not the type to stay in a bad relationship forever.
Specifically, what Mark Carney said as he came into office, we're willing to sit down with the United States once Washington starts showing us some respect.
Let's get into why Canada's looking at the F-35 deal and saying, nah, maybe not worth it. First off, the F-35 jets are fancy, no doubt. They're fifth-generation stealth fighters, but they come at a wallet-draining price. $13.2 billion. That's not just expensive, it's astronomically expensive. And it doesn't stop at the purchase price.
Canada is looking more towards European allies for strategic reasons and questions like procurement, without entirely ruling out, of course, the possibility of healthy bilateral talks with the United States.
The real punch comes later. The maintenance costs are through the roof. We're talking about a logistical nightmare that ties Canada's Air Force to US parts, US systems, and, worst of all, US politics. Imagine buying a car and finding out not only is it overpriced, but every time you need a spare part, you're forced to call your shady ex.
There is a limit, full stop. There is a limit to matching these tariffs dollar for dollar, given the fact that our economy...
And here's the real kicker. Despite shelling out billions, Canada's Royal Canadian Air Force, RCAF, is only 4% operationally ready. Yep, only 40%. They're struggling with everything from pilot shortages to spare parts to basic fleet maintenance. So now the Defense Ministry is asking the most obvious question. If we're going to drop $13.2 billion on these jets, who guarantees they'll even be ready to fly?
President Trump has put some very important issues at the top of his agenda.
Trump's trade tantrums and unpredictable mood swings make that guarantee worthless. Canada's leadership is smart enough to realize that putting their national security in the hands of someone as unstable as Trump is not a sound strategy. Why pay billions to be treated like the unwanted stepchild? Think about it. Trump's administration has basically become the textbook example of how to push your allies into the arms of someone else. Every tariff, every insult, every dumb comment about annexation just made Canada inch closer to slamming the door on this deal. They've got options.
The impact of weakening U.S. economy has an impact on everyone else. But of course it has a direct impact as well on the affected countries.
Europe's defense manufacturers are waiting with open arms, ready to offer cheaper, more practical solutions without the political baggage. Meanwhile, Trump's sitting there losing a $13 billion deal over his own inability to keep his mouth shut. Canada's looking at this whole situation like, why are we still buying overpriced jets from a country that disrespects us and makes our trade life hell? And honestly, they've got a point. The numbers don't lie. $13.2 billion, 88 jets, endless maintenance headaches, only 40% operational readiness, and a partner who's more interested in picking fights than honoring deals. Who wouldn't start shopping around?
Lost in 2023 had signed a deal for the purchase of 88 F-35 fighter jets from the American company. We know they've paid for 16 of those, but what we heard from Mark Carney's office, even as he headed off on this European tour.
Oh, we're just getting started roasting Trump and the US. Because now Canada is not just reconsidering the overpriced, maintenance nightmare F-35 jets, they're actively being courted by Europe. And trust me, Europe is looking like the hotter, more stable, far less annoying option right now. While Trump is too busy throwing tantrums and puffing up his ego, countries like Sweden, France, and the UK are sliding into Canada's DMs with offers that actually make sense. And after all the chaos Trump has dumped on Canada's plate, can you blame them for being tempted?
Field management, this is one of the largest corporations on the planet in terms of investment dollars and many people seeking answers.
Let's get into the juicy details. Europe's defense industry has been on fire post-Ukraine crisis. Why? Because they've had to ramp up production to deal with the shifting security landscape. The ones with the sky-high $13.2 billion price tag. The ones Trump keeps dangling over Canada's head like they're some exclusive VIP product. Europe is rolling out options, and Canada is taking a long, hard look.
Canada, they would normally have a visit first to the United States. Since President Trump decided to, say that he wanted to annex Canada, Mark Carney saying quite forcefully that for bilateral talks to continue, that kind of talk has to stop. They have not even had a phone call.
The 3 European jets Canada's seriously eyeing are no joke. First up, we've got Sweden's Saab Gripen E4F. These babies are cheaper, tailored for cold climates, and, get this, designed for easy maintenance. Imagine that. An aircraft that won't drain billions just to keep it in the air. Sweden's basically saying, hey Canada, want jets that can survive the Arctic and don't come with strings attached to Trump's unstable administration? Sounds like a sweet deal.
As much as possible of that production resides in Canada and benefits Canadians in multiple ways is a prudent thing to do. That's what I can tell you.
Next on the table is France's Dassault Rafale. This isn't some experimental aircraft. It's a proven, multi-role jet already used by countries like India, Greece, and Egypt. It's got advanced sensors, impressive capabilities, and most importantly, it doesn't come with Trump's baggage. France is like, look, we're reliable. We've got the tech, and we don't throw childish insults about making you a 51st state. Canada's defense experts are definitely paying attention.
Are you not going to speak with President Trump until he cuts out this 51st state talk?
No. I look forward to speaking with President Trump. Just to be clear, we respect the United States. We respect President Trump.
And then there's the Eurofighter Typhoon, a powerhouse developed by the UK, Germany, Italy, and Spain. This jet dominates in air combat, is NATO standard, and sits at a reasonable medium cost. So while Trump's busy flexing and trying to bully Canada into staying loyal, Europe's consortium is over here offering strength, stability, and zero trade drama.
We can diversify our trading relationships, we can build new trading corridors, and we can fully realize what Canada is, which is an energy superpower.
Now, here's the kicker. Gripen EF's low cost, cold climate durability, and ease of maintenance. That's practically tailor-made for Canada. The Saab Gripen is literally designed to thrive in freezing conditions. It's like Sweden looked at Canada's icy winters and said, don't worry, we've got you covered. And better yet, if Canada buys in bulk, they could significantly lower unit costs and completely sidestep the financial minefield Trump keeps planting with his tariffs and trade wars. No more waking up wondering if Trump's latest mood swing will cost them billions.
We understand the importance President Trump places on American workers and American jobs. We want him and his administration to understand the importance we put on Canadian workers and Canadian jobs.
But the real power move came when Mark Carney took the stage. Forget everything you thought about tradition. Carney didn't waste time booking his first flight to Washington like every other Canadian PM before him. No, he flipped the script. His first official foreign trip? Straight to France and the UK. He basically ghosted the US and went to Europe to shake hands, strike deals, and send a very loud, very clear message. Canada's done playing nice with Trump.
Look for avenues to work together so that both objectives are met in terms of both our great economies, just as we are doing, and the people behind me have led this, just as we are doing with respect to the scourge of fentanyl.
And let's talk about the welcome he got. Emmanuel Macron and Keir Starmer rolled out the red carpet, Canada and Europe standing shoulder to shoulder, building partnerships without the constant drama coming from south of the border. Carney didn't mince words either. He publicly called out Trump's 51st state comments as disrespectful, not helpful, and damaging. Stop treating Canada like your backup plan or colony, because those days are over.
But Mark Carney switched fairly comfortably between French and English and made very forcefully the case that this was a moment also for unity to be achieved between Canada and Europe in a way that had not been sought as specifically as it is now.
Carney made it crystal clear. Canada doesn't need the US to stand up for itself. They're perfectly capable of defending their own interests without being chained to Trump's unpredictable, ego-driven policies. And the trade uncertainty? It's not just hurting Canada, it's dragging the US down too. Trump's America First nonsense is isolating America faster than he can type his next insult. But let's get serious for a second about the economic and strategic power play here, because Canada's shift is no empty threat. Canada already paid for 16 F-35 jets, scheduled for delivery in 2026, but they're seriously thinking about canceling the rest. That's not some empty gesture. That's Canada looking at the numbers, the disrespect, the trade chaos, and saying, why should we keep throwing money at this?
Very expensive fighter jets from the U.S. over trade concerns.
And you know who's sweating bullets right now? Lockheed Martin. Because if Canada walks away, that's billions gone overnight. That's one of America's biggest defense giants left scrambling, all because Trump couldn't stop himself from treating allies like enemies. It gets better. Canada isn't just ditching the US jets. They're planning to pivot their entire defense collaboration towards Europe. Companies like Bombardier, Canada's aerospace jewel, could get integrated into EU defense programs. Instead of bending over backward to appease Trump's trade tantrums, Canada's about to roll out a new partnership model, one that boosts their economy without depending on Trump's unstable leadership.
Domestic economic policy. There's many opportunities in Canada. It's a very strong economy, but it could be much stronger. We could have one Canadian economy instead of 13. We can build the millions of houses that Canadians need.
But here's the real sting for the US. Canada's using this shift as a bargaining chip. They're basically telling the US, either you stop with the trade wars and insults, or we'll take our billions elsewhere. Trump's all about deals, but clearly, he didn't realize that acting like a bully means people take their business to someone else. And the kicker is, Trump's ego is so massive, he probably thought Canada would stay loyal no matter how badly he treated them.
Which is an energy superpower in both clean and conventional energy, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We are going to get stronger, while those who take trade actions get weaker.
I'm Paula Newton in New York. You have been listening to Mark Carney there in London taking questions.
At the end of the day, Trump's obsession with tariffs, his juvenile comments, and his inability to keep allies close is about to cost the US big. Canada's about to shake hands with Europe, write new contracts, and leave Trump standing there wondering how he managed to fumble a $13.2 billion deal over his own mouth. Oh, you thought Trump couldn't embarrass himself any further? Well, welcome to the circus, because the man took it up a notch when he decided to publicly joke about annexing Canada and calling it the 51st state.
Trump has also repeatedly said that he wants to make Canada the 51st US state.
I mean, how insecure do you have to be to throw out lines like that? Especially when you're dangling a multi-billion-dollar defense deal over your neighbor's head. But here's the kicker. Canada didn't just laugh awkwardly and move on. No, Prime Minister Mark Carney came out swinging. He didn't stutter. He hit Trump right back, saying loud and clear, "We don't need allies to defend us. Canada can stand strong alone." Translation: keep your jets and your nonsense. We've got better offers on the table. Canadian media didn't miss a beat either. Defense experts, journalists, and the general public all turned their focus on one thing: cutting the US out of their defense dependency. Trump's childish diplomacy, if you can even call it that, basically handed Canada every reason to start pulling away. It's like watching someone blow up their own relationship and then wonder why the other person left.
And the people behind me have led this, just as we are doing with respect to the scourge of fentanyl.
Trump's America First policy was never really about strategy. It was about alienating every ally in sight, and Canada's no exception. While Trump was busy flexing for his base, Canada quietly started making moves, shifting closer to EU-led defense alliances. Let's be real, Europe's not dumb. They've been watching Trump burn bridges faster than he can build them. And they're more than ready to scoop up Canada's defense contracts while the US is left scratching its head, wondering where it all went wrong. The real joke here is that Trump genuinely underestimated Canada's ability to play hardball. He thought he could toss around jokes, throw tariffs like confetti, and Canada would just smile politely and keep signing checks.
We will tariff and tax foreign countries to enrich our citizens.
What he didn't get is that Canada's not some helpless sidekick. They've been quietly setting up alternatives, and Europe's sitting there, arms wide open, ready to absorb all that defense spending. Trump didn't just miscalculate, he handed Canada the perfect excuse to walk away.
25% on Mexico and Canada.
And now, thanks to Trump's loose mouth and trade bullying, we're watching one of the biggest defense realignments in modern North American history. Think about it. A key NATO partner, historically tied to U.S. defense projects, is seriously reconsidering whether America's even worth dealing with. All because Trump couldn't resist running his mouth and treating allies like enemies. It's the political equivalent of fumbling the easiest play in the book.
Is there any room left for Canada and Mexico to make a deal before midnight? And should we expect those Chinese tariffs, the extra 10%, to take
No room left for Mexico or for Canada. No, the tariffs, they're all set. They go into effect tomorrow.
But where's all this headed? Let's break down the timeline because the Canadian Defense Ministry isn't wasting time. They've already kicked off fast-track evaluations, and experts are saying a final decision could come within 1 to 2 years. That's lightning fast in defense procurement terms. Trump's got a ticking clock hanging over his head, and every time he opens his mouth, the odds of Canada cutting ties get higher.
Are these the actions of a man who knows what he's doing? Maybe not, but...
Of course, no decision comes without risks. Canadian defense firms like Bombardier, which have ties to U.S. markets, might feel some heat if the deal gets scrapped. There's also some uncertainty about how this might shake up cooperation with NORAD, North American Aerospace Defense Command. Because when one partner's walking away from billion-dollar deals, things get a little awkward. But let's be honest, Canada's weighing the cost of being chained to Trump's chaos versus the potential freedom of diversifying.
I think chaos is a big part of Trump's strategy.
There's a term that applies to what the Trump administration is doing: weaponized uncertainty.
And speaking of freedom, Europe is basically rolling out the red carpet. Germany, Italy, France, Sweden, they're all massively increasing defense spending. They've got new industrial opportunities popping up everywhere, and Canada knows it. If they join forces, they're not just buying jets, they're buying influence. They get to shape bulk procurement deals, drive down costs, and best of all, sidestep U.S. trade instability completely. No more tariff whiplash, no more waiting to see which mood trumps in this week.
Another possibility is Trump just likes the attention, just likes the drama.
I don't think there's a genuine economic strategy behind it.
But here's the part that should really keep Trump up at night. Analysts are already speculating this could set off a ripple effect. If Canada pulls out, other NATO allies might start questioning whether clinging to U.S. defense contracts is worth it. Trump's tantrums could end up weakening U.S. defense dominance in NATO, something no other president in history has managed to do this fast. Bravo, Donald, you broke it. And now we're staring down the aftermath. Canada's $13.2 billion defense deal review isn't just some paperwork exercise. It's a direct result of Trump's reckless trade policies, his constant insults, and his inability to keep a stable relationship with one of America's oldest allies. Canada's watching Europe step up, offering better deals, more respect, and none of the petty drama that's become Trump's signature move.
You've talked about Trump needing to show Canada respect.
President Trump.
President Trump needing to show Canada respect.
The wild part? Trump's obsession with short-term wins, slapping tariffs, making dumb comments, acting like the U.S. can't lose, has literally cost America a major strategic ally. We're not just talking money, although losing billions in defense revenue stings. We're talking about long-term influence, trust, and stability. And whether Canada fully cancels the F-35 deal or just walks away from the rest, the message couldn't be clearer. Canada has options. Trump pushed them to use those options. The US might still be acting like they've got the upper hand, but let's face it, Canada's making the power moves now. And Trump, of course, is acting like this is coming out of nowhere. But it's not. It's years of him shooting himself in the foot. Canada's had enough, and honestly, who could blame them? Subscribe, like, and comment your thoughts below.